The Carolina Hurricanes lost yet another game last night against the New York Islanders in overtime. Find out what went wrong and what they need to do to get back on the right track in this episode of Locked On Hurricanes.
You're Locked On Hurricanes, your daily podcast on the Carolina Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hey there, Caniacs. I'm your host, Jared Ellis, and you're listening to Locked On Hurricanes on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Friday afternoon. And today's episode is brought to you by the folks over at FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/locked on to get started today. Now, last night, the Carolina Hurricanes lost in overtime to the New York Islanders 5-4. And obviously, I know the show hasn't been around as much lately, just with stuff going on. But the Hurricanes have been pretty inconsistent, in my opinion, as of late. And it's on one hand with this game last night. Yes, they were able to force overtime, get a point in the standings, which is really good because we've seen the opposite of that. We've seen some pretty ugly games over the past few weeks, and really just not looking like the team that was the favorite to win the Stanley Cup heading into the season. They didn't look like that. Last night, it was again, they were able to force overtime, get a point, which is good. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's not, because that's not the case in the slightest. I'm always going to be happy when they're able to do something like that. But when you get the stereotypical thing of the Hurricanes out shooting the mess out of their opponent, shots on goal final, where the Hurricanes 43 and the Islanders 16, you got a problem then. I mean, a couple weeks ago, a few games ago, Auntie Ranta had one of the worst performances uh, in NHL history. I believe it was against the Lightning, where it was really, really ugly. And I don't want to blame this on the goaltending, because it's not all on them. It's not, because we've seen several times this season where Pyotr Kochetkov, Antti Raanta, or Frederik Andersen, when he was healthy, they really bailed this team out. But it's getting to the point where they can only do but so much. And you look at the guys out on the ice, just mistakes that are being made. Like, you just can't keep doing that. And I think that it was a better performance than they had. They had just won, two straight, beating Philly 4-1, beating Columbus 3-2. So they had a little bit of momentum behind them, which was really good, especially after that Philly game the other day. And there's still positives there with the team. They still have what it takes to win. And it's just the consistency of it all that's really failing them. And it's it is only December. It's December 1st right now. So, there's still time, for them to work through these issues, get this stuff taken care of. And, I remember, a while back, it was like mid-November, Jordan Stahl, was saying how, guys weren't buying in. And I think that still may be a bit of a problem for the team. I really, really do think that, who it is, I don't know. But I do think that that may still be a little bit of a problem of guys just not buying into what the Hurricanes are doing, and it's getting better, and I think it will continue to improve as the game or as the season goes on, but, you look at, last night again, I mentioned the shots on goal. We're gonna talk about, by period. First period, 12-7, 15-3 in the second, 15-4 in the third. Islanders, did, win in overtime, 2-1, but at the end of the day, like, they've got to get these mistakes under control. You look at, power play, Hurricanes yet again did not convert on the power play. They went 0 for 3 last night, and then the Islanders went 1 for 4 on the power play. And I remember, God, when was it? I want to say it was a little towards the end of the game where Jordan Stahl, took a pretty costly one, and I think that they need to just stick to their game. Like, yeah, we're gonna get into this here in a second, but they're trying to do too much. They're being quote unquote too cute, and that's obviously a Rod Brind'amour saying there. But you look at this stuff like, come on, guys, and it's such. I mean, given it's one thing for me to sit here and say I don't play for the team. You don't play for the none of us play for an NHL team, all right? It's a lot easier for us to sit here and say, "Oh, they need to do this, they need to do that." We're not out on the ice doing that, but it does feel like, you know, just some of these costly mistakes and the inconsistency is really, really plaguing this team, and the Islanders, kudos to them. I mean, the Hurricanes had that many shots on goal, and the Islanders were able to come away with the win. Kudos to them on that and their goaltender. That's obviously good performance for them. To be able to squeak out that win, but it's kind of stereotypical Canes hockey. I've said this many times. Of you know, sometimes it feels like they're shooting to shoot, not shooting to score. So if and yeah, you need to get the pucks on the net, create that pressure, which is good. But at the end of the day, that logo on the front of the goalie's jersey is not a target, and sometimes it does feel like that's what they're doing. But again, kudos to the Islanders, for able to get out that win. But in the Islanders, they were also extremely opportunistic, and you look at I have the Hurricanes recap here up on my other screen, and right here, you I'm going to quote this here. Quote, perhaps no stanza told the story better than the second period, where the Islanders didn't even record a shot attempt through the first 15 minutes. However, they scored twice on 3 shots in the final 4 minutes and 1 second of the frame. End quote. And it's just stuff like that. Like, you're doing so well, and yeah, obviously stuff is going to happen. It's professional sports, whether we're talking hockey, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, whatever, stuff like that is going to happen. That's just name of the game. It's going to happen. But, it's pretty darn frustrating. And I think they know it's frustrating. You can kind of tell that they're starting to get a little frustrated. But again, I mentioned, mistakes being an problem, for the Hurricanes. But before we go, I just happened to scroll a little bit. This stat here, that Walt Ruff posted on Twitter. Islanders in the third period, minus 52 shot differential, ranked 31st in the NHL. 13 goals scored in the third period, 31st in the NHL. Goal differential of minus 15, 30th NHL, and they're one of 5 teams without a third period comeback win, or at the time they were. So, man, I think that the Hurricanes, they have it, and they have what it takes to win. It's just a matter of getting all the puzzle pieces to fit together. If they can do that, I think they'll be okay because, again, like, I said at the beginning of the episode, with this game, they were able to force overtime and at least get a point. I know, yeah, a loss is a loss and it sucks. And, I think that, you know, again, it sucks, but they're able to get something out of it. And, you look at, the third period where Jack Drew was finally able to get a goal. And, they fought back. They did. They fought through their mistakes and everything they were doing. And the Islanders, they were looking like they were gonna win the game 4-3 in regulation. Hurricanes weren't even gonna point, but Sebastian Aho was able to tie the game with 3 seconds left. At the time, we thought it was Jordan Stahl, but ended up being Sebastian Aho, which is great. And it's stuff like that that makes me think, all right, there's still something here. It's not a complete and total train wreck or anything. They're not going to be in line for, the draft lottery and to get the first overall pick or anything like that. It's not going to be the case. They still have what it takes to be a playoff team. They do. And I think that they can still get there. I think, again, just the mistakes. They got to get that stuff under control. But we'll talk more about mistakes and what Brind'amour, Jarvis, and Stahl had to say after the game, right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, as the weather gets colder, the NFL season is heating up, and the NFL offers stay hot on FanDuel. So, right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time to get on the action than now. The app is super easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over unders, and more. And of course, you also still have NHL season going on right now, NBA season's going on right now. You're not limited to just the NFL either. So if you want to bet on the Hurricanes, if you want to bet on your favorite NBA team, if you want to bet on your favorite NFL team, FanDuel has you covered. So visit fanduel.com/locked on and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Now, getting back into the Hurricanes, I talked about mistakes costing the Canes, and you know, it's just like little things that they typically don't do, and they're just in like a rough stretch right now. We've seen it in years past. Sometimes it feels like around this time of the year, November, December, is when they kind of had some struggles. And I'm trying not to look too much into it. Of oh, season's over. Time to just have a fire sale at the trade deadline. No, that's not the case. And though I do think that they do need to make some moves, they obviously did the one that a lot of folks were talking about, of scratching D'Angelo and putting Jalen Chatfield back in the lineup. And I do think that that was the smart move, because you look at just the defense as a whole. When Chatfield was out there compared to D'Angelo, it does seem better. So I think they need to stick with that first and foremost. Don't go back to making that mistake. That was obviously causing a whole lot of controversy among the fan base and folks that cover the team. You know, it was just a lot of butting heads, but it does feel like, hey, this was the right move, benching D'Angelo and putting Chatfield back in the lineup. I think that that was the correct move there, and I think that's how they need to continue to roll with it. Um, but I do feel that, the mistakes that they've been making, again, just going back to, careless penalties, like, come the heck on, guys. You can't be doing that. And, you look at, um, the third period of, the Hurricanes took 3 there. Obviously, the one was an unsuccessful challenge, um, which is a bit of a questionable challenge. You know, watching the game, like, should they have challenged that? I don't know. I don't get paid the big bucks for that, so my opinion is not worth as much as Brind'amour's coaching staff there. But yeah, it did seem like a bit of a questionable penalty. But then you have that 2 minute too many men on the ice penalty late in the or kind of not late, but also not midway either. Is about 13, a little over 13 minutes into the third. And just stuff like that. Just come on. They're better than that. And I think that they'll get it put together. They will. And Jordan Stahl, he had a really good game as well, goal and assist. We thought that Sebastian Aho goal at the end was Stahl's. Again, ended up being Aho's, but you don't have that without him either. So there's stuff there for them, to work on, but just the defensive lapses, giving other teams opportunities, you know, and the other team also taking advantage of the opportunities that they are being given. The Hurricanes gotta tighten up. They they really have got to tighten up their game, and I think that's the biggest thing they need to work on. They got to tighten up their game. If they can do that, I think they'll be all right. But if they continue to play loose, trying to be quote unquote too cute, then we're going to have a problem, going down the stretch. Where it may not be, oh, they're, going to be a, Metro, 1 seed again. They may be fighting for a wild card spot, if they continue to be as inconsistent as they are. But I did say I wanted to talk about, what, about what Brind'amour, Jarvis, and Stahl said. Again, they did play well for the most part, but at the end of the day, I do want to talk about Seth Jarvis, what he had to say, because I think it says a lot about him and how he's growing and maturing as a player and adult. He took the blame for the loss. He said, "quote I screwed us pretty bad. The power play goal that New York scored shorthanded is on me. Uh, I know I've got to make the play there. I just didn't think and made it too easy on them. Then in overtime, Fishy makes a great pass, and 9 times out of 10, that's a shot. I know it's a shot. It's an elementary school play that you shoot that every time. I tried to make the extra play and be a little too cute, and it screwed us in the end." End quote. How many times have we said that? They try to do too much, and it screws them. I like that he's taking the accountability for it. I really, really do. I just hope that they learn from it. That's I think that's going to be a good learning experience for Seth Jarvis heading into the next game and the rest of the season. Really, like, hey, just keep it simple. You don't have to, have these highlight reel plays and stuff like that. No, just scoring the goal is a highlight reel play in and of itself. So, I like that he's taking the accountability there that, hey, he screwed up and it cost him the game. Again, yeah, they're able to get a point. It's fantastic. But yeah, like he said it. Him trying to be too cute cost him. And then again, like I said earlier, the defensive lapses that we've been talking about this season, how they were able to score, that shorthanded. And it's frustrating to give those up. And you kind of know how the other teams feel when the Hurricanes are scoring shorthanded again, because the Hurricanes typically are a good shorthanded team. And, so the fact that we're experiencing that, like, hey, come on, tightening up defensively is going to be key here for the Hurricanes moving forward throughout the rest of the season. If they can do that, they'll be all right. I do think things will come together offensively. I think right now it's there, and we do see it. Yeah, again, you look at last night. Jack Drew, finally able to getting his first goal of the season, getting that monkey off his back. It's Fetch in the previous game before this one against Philly. Being or was it Columbus? Well, it was one of those two games. It was the Columbus one because he didn't play against Philly. Uh, getting his first goal, getting that monkey off his back. I feel like guys are going to need to get some of these confidence building goals, confidence building plays. I feel they're going to need to get a few of these, and that's obviously not something that's just going to happen in the next game against Buffalo. It's going to take a little bit for them to build that confidence in themselves. And I do think, hey, these guys getting these monkeys off the back is going to be big for that. But again, it's not that they played god awful. Brind'amour said on if there's some current concern over losing a second game in a week despite allowing less than 20 shots in both, he said, quote, that was one of the better games that we played all year. We're not going to play much better than that. The goalies know it. It's tough. We're going to give up some chances. They know that everybody needs to be better. But I love the way that we played. Every part of the game was solid. Everybody was solid. Everyone did their job. We had a ton of scoring opportunities, 3 or 4 goal posts, and we still scored 4. We limited what they're doing, end quote. And yeah, he is right. They did limit what the Islanders were doing. And he's right. They are going to give up some chances. That's going to happen in every game. All right. Or almost every game. Every now and again, you'll get one where you get a shoot or a shutout. But I don't know if it was one of the better games of the season. I don't know if it was. I liked the fight in it. And how they're able to fight back, get, that goal in the last, couple seconds, get to overtime. And yeah, but I don't know if it was one of their better games of the season. I really don't. It was very frustrating. Just the mistakes that they're making. Like you can't be doing that. And again, I appreciate Seth Jarvis. Um, taking the blame for this stuff. But I honestly, agree more with Jordan Stahl here. He, offered his thoughts on the defeat, saying, quote, I thought we played pretty well. Special teams kind of let us down again, both sides. I thought our 5-on-5 play was good. We hit a couple posts and had a couple of other great chances. It was a good game, but we came up short by one, end quote. Yeah, special teams let you down. Again. And it's getting frustrating talking about the special teams letting him down because it feels like it's just, been, 5 seasons doing the show now, and it's been an issue every single season in one way or another. Yeah. Oh, well, most of the time it's been the power play's been crap and the penalty kill has been really good, but the penalty kill hasn't been living up to expectations this year either. For me, and power play is yet again just piddling around, doing, whatever. And yeah, I know with the power play, okay, you just pulled D'Angelo out of the lineup. No telling if he'll even come back in. So, I get that. Okay, you're gonna and you shuffle, some stuff around, with him coming out. Okay, fine, sure. But it's just painful to watch sometimes. And yeah, they're able to create, some good chances, which is great, but you need to capitalize on the chances, which is something they struggle to do sometimes. Again, I do want to go back to this, when I say they're struggling to capitalize, you had 43 shots on goal. The Islanders had 16. The Islanders won. All right. All right. You need to capitalize a bit more. And again, kudos to Islanders for taking advantage of the opportunities that they are given. Kudos to their goalie for stopping as many freaking shots as he did. Uh, yeah, I mean Varlamov, he, it was a .907 save percentage, goals allowed 3.82 in the game. Kudos to him. He had to work for his paycheck last night, and he got it. But I think the Hurricanes, as far as their next game, they got to tighten up big time. And we're gonna dive into the Hurricanes next game and what's next for them right after this quick break, folks. Now, folks, a new NHL season brings all sorts of possibilities. Sebastian Aho could score 50 goals. The Hurricanes could hoist the Stanley Cup, and you could win big by playing daily fantasy hockey on Sleeper, the official daily fantasy app of the Locked On NHL network. Sleeper is our number one choice for daily fantasy sports and especially daily fantasy hockey, because with Sleeper, you can win 100 times your cash in daily fantasy hockey contests. Now, what players, do you think you would take, to win 100 times your money? What do you or your friends, think? You got so many things, to consider with doing this. And the thing is, you're not just limited to the NHL. You can also play daily fantasy for the NFL, the NBA, MLB, and college football all on Sleeper. All you have to do is pick whether studs like Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, or guys on other teams, like McDavid, Ovechkin, Crosby, McKinnon, whoever, will record more or less than their sleeper projections for things like goals, assists, saves, plus, minus, and more in a given game. And that goes for all the other stuff we talked about as well: NFL, NBA, MLB, college football, all of that stuff. There's so many opportunities here with Sleeper for you. So to win 100 times bet on Sleeper, you need to correctly predict the outcome of 8-player stats. You heard me, Canes fans. You can win 100 times your money playing daily fantasy hockey with Sleeper. So start paying attention and nail your picks so you can start winning big. Use promo code Locked On NHL and you'll get up to $100 match on your first deposit. Terms and conditions apply. That's code Locked On NHL, LOCKEDONNHL. See Sleeper's terms of use for details and location availability. Now, getting back to the Hurricanes and as far as what's next for them, they are practicing today, and I do hope that they do work on their special teams and tightening up defensively and practice today. I think it may have wrapped by now, but I really hope that was something they worked on today, because I think that's their biggest issue right now. If they can just tighten up defensively, I think the other stuff will come. The offense will come. Guys are going to get their confidence back, and they'll be able to get things put together there. But if your defense is looking like Swiss cheese, you're not really going to be doing a whole heck of a lot. But if they can do that, I think they'll be okay. And then they have Buffalo on Saturday tomorrow at home, and it will be the Hurricanes' final home game before they go out west for 2 weeks. And we're going to look at their schedule briefly, just to kind of see what we're going to be looking at with them. And again, Buffalo tomorrow. Then you have Winnipeg on the 6th, Edmonton on the 7th, Calgary on the 9th, Vancouver on the 12th, Ottawa on the 14th. So, they're going to have, a good long road trip. And we've talked about this before, kind of how they always have that long early season road trip on the West Coast because of the North Carolina State Fair. And it, sometimes feels like, that's a good way for them to start to gel and mesh because you're on such a long road trip. You got to, and it feels like that can be, a time where, they really start, to mesh things together. And I think that, this road trip coming up can definitely help them with that, with their big Canadian road trip that they do around this time every year. So I think that, that can potentially be something to help them out. Even if it's, a game where, okay, they don't necessarily win the game, but it was one where there's some stuff to build off of, gain some confidence, and have stuff to build off of. I think that that's going to be really key here for this next stretch that they're going through. Just have stuff to build off of. Obviously, yes, we want the wins. They're currently sitting at 13-8-1 on the season now. So, obviously above 500, that's great. Again, for the first time, in forever, they are under 500 earlier this year. But I think that this road trip coming up, that can be something that they can build off of. I really, really do. We'll see what happens. But I think tightening up defensively is going to be big for, really just the foreseeable future, not just the next game, not just the road trip. If they're able to do that, they'll be okay. But I think that if they continue to have the consistency problems that they're having, if they are continuing to just make the mistakes that they're making, and careless mistakes too, like too many men, you know, like that's one really, uh, not that's not one that they typically make. So yeah, that was a little frustrating. That's definitely an eye rolling one for sure. Um, but I think that they have. That's my main thing going forward with them into the Buffalo game, into the road trip. Just have games that you can build off of. You know, you get the win, awesome, fantastic. Always gonna love that. But just have stuff that you can build off of. Show improvement in the areas that we're talking about, in your special teams, in your defense holding together. I said earlier, I think D'Angelo coming out of the lineup, Chatfield going back in was a great first step in that, because we all know D'Angelo sucks defensively. He absolutely sucks and is a traffic cone out there and is basically, oh, he's going to allow at least one goal tonight. So getting him out of the lineup, I think, was a good first step. I know, again, folks are still wanting him in, because of his offensive capabilities. Okay, fine, whatever. He wasn't really putting that together either, in my opinion. He was not looking like, he did in his first stint here, where it's like, oh, he's setting this record or whatever. It's not the case. And he doesn't have, Jacob Slavin to cover for him now. He's paired with Dmitry Orlov, and that pairing was god awful and atrocious. So let's not put that back together. I think they got what they need right now defensively. So don't screw that up. That'd be taking a step back. Tighten up defensively. Have games that you can build off of. That's my big thing for this weekend and for this road trip coming up. They can do that, and they'll be all right. But at the end of the day, they lost in overtime to the Islanders 5-4 again. They're able to get a point, which is good. We're going to take a quick look before we go, just to see where the Hurricanes are at in the standings. It's been a minute since I looked, really. Currently sitting at second in the Metro at 22 games played, 13-8-1. And like I said, in 27 points, only the New York Rangers are ahead of them. Rangers, 21 games played at 16-4-1, 33 points. Now, in terms of the league, the Hurricanes are currently sitting at 11th in the league. Feels like it's been a while since they've been out of the top 10. But they have The Red Wings, Maple Leafs, Stars, Kings, Panthers, Canucks, Avalanche, Bruins, Rangers, and reigning champ Golden Knights all ahead of them. Again, I think the Hurricanes, they can put it together. They just, again, take care of your mistakes, tighten up defensively, have games that you can build off of. Cannot stress that enough. They do that, I think they'll be all right, but they really got to work on that. They do that, we're going to have more positive episodes, folks. But yeah, at the end of the day, we just got to wait for these next games to come around. Again, Buffalo tomorrow. Hopefully, we're going to be coming away with a win in that one, but we'll talk about that when it happens. So make sure you're following the show along at LO_Hurricanes and myself at Jared Ellis _96. And as always, folks, thank you for making Locked On Hurricanes your first listen of this Friday afternoon. And let's go, Canes.